welcome to our show. This week we have for you, in our new retro games reviews, Zezito and the Lost Stars, a very good platformer for Acorn Electron, The Amazing Wings of Fear, an incredible shoot 'em up for the Commodore Amiga, and in a special third review, Tiger Heli 40th anniversary for the Atari 7800 Plus. In our hardware review, we take a different approach this time, and we teach you how to make an easy mod for your Amstrad CPC to use a 3.5-inch floppy disk drive with no internal messing around. Our DOS Vault this week presents Dangerous Fen in Vasya's Mansion, a fun little action game with an EGA flavor. Also, Ambermoon Advanced, an incredible remake for PC and Amiga of a classic RPG. And finally, in our retrospective view, we revisit the brilliant The Incredible Machine, a unique and smart take on the puzzle genre by Sierra Online. Our retro adventures reviews hold a sequel to the creepy horror adventure Snarl in the Face of Teeth of Glass. Also, we remember the ever so funny Simon The Sorcerer, the absolute British humor adventure. Finally, in the history lesson, we look back into the birth and untimely tragic demise of a symbol of the second generation, the Colecovision. We hope you enjoy our show. Let's start with our new retro games reviews with Zezito and the Lost Stars, a new platform game for the Acorn Electron by Lapetus. Now, we don't get that many new games for poor old Electron, and it's a crying shame since it was a competent adversary for the mighty ZX Spectrum that just had a lot of bad luck. Zezito must recover 99 stars that the evil witch Malandra is keeping in her castle in order to restore the night sky. The premise of the game is simple, like its story. Collect as many stars as you can in every run, whilst trying to avoid various baddies and hazards. So, a very simple game, you might think. But even though the game is nothing really complicated, albeit it's very fun and well made, the visual side of things is something to be amazed about. This might be one of the prettiest, if not the prettier, game I've ever seen on an Acorn Electron. The colors are vivid, the animation is excellent, the graphics are detailed, and each screen is designed wonderfully. You'll be hard-pressed to believe that this runs in a standard and modified 32K Acorn Electron. Kudos to Lapetus for the technical expertise demonstrated in this game. The controls are not bad and won't cause any trouble. Just left, right and jump. There is no in-game music, but there are plenty of sound effects that are satisfying and functional enough. The gameplay is simple, but very well made and addictive. On to the rankings now, and the graphics receive a 9.7. The controls, an 8.9. The music and sound effects, a 7. And the gameplay, an 8.5, for a total of 8.5. You won't believe that your Electron can do that. Try it out. Our second review today is for the game Wings of Fear, for an Amiga AGA capable with at least 2 MB fast RAM, but it's definitely worth it. The game is made by Roar TJ, with the theme song and the in-game music contributed by Martin Imre Gaspar and Frank Ewil Larsen, respectively. It is a shoot 'em up with a World War I theme, as you fly a Sopwith Camel double-decker, fighting your way through enemy waves to locate a secret German base. The graphics of the game are a work of art, with a very artistic use of the palette that gives the graphics a painting-like feeling. The animation is fast and greatly detailed, as are the areas you're flying through. I did meet a weird artifact effect on my shooting projectiles, but it only happens for half a second, and it could be my problem, so I'm not sure about it. It's of no real consequence though, as the graphics are simply amazing. There is a wonderful in-game theme that changes often, and the sound effects are great and atmospheric, giving a good dogfight vibe. There is even digitized speech every time you pick up a bonus. The stages are exciting, and there are even boss fights and bonus stages that bring the action to 10. The controls are very responsive and well made. The game is a bit challenging, but nothing too extreme. The graphics are awarded a 9.4. The controls a 9.5. The music and sound effects a 9.2. And the gameplay a 9.1. For a total of 9.3. This is one of the best Amiga shoot 'em ups of the past years, and if you won't give it a try, you'll be missing out, truly. We have a third review this week for a new retro platform. This is Tiger Heli 40th anniversary for the Atari 7800 Plus by Stokes and Plyon. This is of course a remake/remaster of the original 1985 Tiger Heli by Toplan that came out back then to the arcades and got ported over to both the original Atari 7800 and the NES. It is of course, for those of you who haven't heard of the original, a shoot 'em up and the prequel to the also critically acclaimed Twin Cobra. Now the Atari 7800 Plus version is an updated one with a bit better graphics, faster animation, and better music and sound effects. The controls have also been updated to be a bit more responsive. The game is still very difficult to stay true to the trend of the games of yesteryear. One technical issue I came across in this updated version is that the top upper part of the screen, approximately 3 lines of it, is always out of view even if I try displaying the game in 4:3 mode. I've tried this with 3 different monitors and still have the same problem. The graphics of the game receive an 8.8. The controls an 8.9. The music and sound effects a 9. And the gameplay an 8.7. For a total of 8.8. Tiger Heli is a solid effort to remake an oldie and goldie, even if it is a bit flawed game of the classic Atari era. It's worth a place in your library. This week's hardware review is not so much a review as an instructions video on how to make your own Amstrad CPC mod to use an external 3.5-inch floppy drive instead of the internal 3 inches. Now we're gonna need a classic PC 1.44 megabyte external floppy drive and of course its cable connector. I found that a Mitsumi floppy drive is working without any problems, but according to many people in technical forums, any old PC drive will work. But I should add that it's better to find one with an auto switch and not a dipswitch setting for convenience. So, let's go see the mod analytically and what you'll need to make it work. Now, what we're gonna need is two power supplies, PSUs, of 5 volts. The one will be used to supply external power to the Amstrad. You can find many PSUs like this on the internet. This is one I bought some time ago. It works pretty good. It's a 3-COM PSU supply. It receives the external PSU for the Amstrad and it gives power through this. Now, the second PSU here is needed to power the external floppy drive. It's also a 5-volt auto switch PSU and it's readily connected. You can also find these online in a much better form than I found them, but bear in mind I bought my PSUs back in 2014, 13, somewhere around that time. Now, the most essential part is the floppy drive cable. Now, this of course is an edge connector for the Amstrad. On one side we have the standard floppy tape, floppy cable connector, as you can see. But what's really essential here is, as you can see, we opened up this side of the cable and we cut the pins 33 and 34 and bind them together. And then we also did the same on the pins 11 and 12. Now, why did we do that, you might ask? Alright, the pin 11 and 12 can be glued together in order to define the disk drive as the first, the primary, drive A, or secondary, drive B. I have two cables. One is to maintain the internal drive as drive A, and the other one is to replace it completely with a 3.5-inch external floppy. Now this is obviously for the second case. The last pins here that are joined together is necessary to be done in order for the disk drive to give the ready signal. Without it, the drive will power up, but will be in seeking, let's say, mode indefinitely, and you won't be able to access it. Now, pretty much that's all there is to it. After that, you just plug everything where it should be plugged. We'll be doing it here. Let's bring our Amstrad here. Alright, now this side, the edge, will go here. This is my Amstrad for experiments, so if it's looking a bit like it's fallen off a roof, don't worry. I'm not treating it badly, but you know. Alright, now power supply here, and this goes on the back of the Amstrad right here. Floppy. We have a floppy drive right here. As we said in the intro, I'm using a Mitsumi. They tried and tested. I'm actually plugging it wrong, that's the way. Make sure you plug it right. Again, those of you who know from floppy drives from the old days, if you plug it the wrong way, you will not receive functionality. And then we plug this in, and it just came alive. Finally, we take our signal cable for the Amstrad. I have a custom-made one that I bought some time ago. I have another one on the way. I don't know if it's a problem with the cable or because I have a dual pass-through for it, meaning that this is a SCART cable. This ends up in a SCART, and the SCART has an adapter to RCA because my converter has only RCA and HDMI ports. So let's plug this in. I'm not sure if it's because somewhere along the way something got unwired inside here. I think it might need extra voltage, just like a Spectrum cable. Or if it's a faulty cable. I don't remember that. I'm gonna have to look into it. I have another one on the way, so you must excuse the fact that you might see a black and white picture. But still, the purpose of this whole video is to see this mod working. So, alright, everything is plugged in. All we have to do is turn our Amstrad on, and let's go see how it fares. Now, as the problem with the cable was not resolved, obviously some odd cables, even with the extra added voltage, because while filming this, the cable with the extra voltage arrived, so had the chance to try it out, and it still gave me a black and white picture. Doing a little research, I found out that this is happening more often than not on the Amstrad CPC range with a SCART cable. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find a straight RCA cable to test it out, but the good news is that it worked perfectly with color on the old LG TFT monitor I have, which is one of my most precious tools. It has all sorts of inputs, including cable, component, RCA, SCART, HDMI, DVI, VGA, you name it. So I didn't want to bring in a video with black and white image. I just couldn't make myself do it, so I went with the choice of filming the monitor straight up, just to like the good old days. I know it's not an elegant solution, but I think it's much better than having a black and white image. So let's move on. We have connected the floppy drive like I've told you, and now we're gonna insert in our 3.5-inch floppy drive a disk. Let's see the contents. There you go. And go. Oh no, excuse me, I'm sitting on a kind of an awkward position because, and there you go. It's they sold 1 million second collection. You get to choose between 2 games. Let's play this first. One of my favorites. There you go. As you can see, the drive worked perfectly. It worked slightly faster than the 3-inch. And yeah, now let's try out... oh, the autofire is on. Okay, let's try out another. Now the good thing about it is the 3.5-inch drive is much more reliable than the 3-inch drive that famously lose their function more often than not because it is... do that. Because it is so easy for the belt to snap. I've heard of solutions that include even a butcher's package wrapper in replacement of the drive's belt. If it works, it works. Let's start up Vindicator. For some reason, I used to love this game. I know it's not a very good game. Not bad, it's nothing special, but... Alright, here we go. Great intro screen. Good old days. Now, like I said, 3.5-inch drives are much more reliable and they're much easier to acquire nowadays. Okay, let's start the game. Again, the game works perfectly. No problems or access errors. Nothing. So, that about sums it up. Let me show you one last thing here. Let's reset the system. And now, because I binded the cables in the way I've shown you, I have the ability to use the drive either as an A drive or as a B drive. No, let me... I can hardly see the keyboard from where I'm sitting because of the weird filming conditions. Okay, now switching to drive B has the exact same result, as you can see. Now, I have read that by using a ribbon that connected double drives, 2 drives at the same time, you can actually use 2 drives at the same time, but I haven't tried it myself, so feel free to try it, and if you see some end results, feel free to send your comments. So let's get back to sum it up. Now, before the conclusion, I wanted to tell you that you should go to cpcmania.com, where you will find all the necessary tools to convert your backup ROMs into actual 3.5-inch discs. There are utilities that will make your life a whole lot easier, and as a bonus, there is a utility now for an external USB floppy drive. Believe me, nowadays it's much easier to get one of those than an internal one. And this utility was not around the first time I made this construct, so it's gonna make your life a lot easier nowadays. The page hasn't been updated for quite some time, but that is not a problem. All the links work, all the tools are downloadable. That's not a problem for you. And there's all sorts of utilities and tools to make your life easier whilst working with a CPC. So definitely check it out. It's quite essential for this mod to work. Now, I know that since the rise of retro gaming as a hobby, especially in the past few years, finding mods is a double-edged knife. Most circuits custom made by various people are really easy to use and convenient, but at the same time, the costs seem to rise. Situations like COVID catapulted costs for chips and boards, and not all people can buy continuously mods to use at the retro computers to enjoy the days of yesteryear. This is a very cheap method. If you already have a floppy drive and a floppy drive cable, I'm sure you can find or create yourself, if you're good with a soldering iron, you can create your own PSU for the floppy drive. Now, you do need the external PSU for your Amstrad if you don't have a monitor. If you do, then, well, it's pretty simple. Obviously, if you have an Amstrad CPC and you want to use this mod, you do already have access to some way of powering it up. So all you need is the PSU for the floppy drive, a floppy drive, and a cable. Nothing else. You can find 3.5 inches discs at home or on the internet pretty cheap. This is a very easy, very cheap way to play your games on the Amstrad and convert your entire library of games so that you will stop worrying about a faulty belt or things like that. I hope it helps, and we'll see you next week on another hardware review. Our first DOS Vault game is Dangerous Fen in Vasya's Mansion for PC by Crusader Raccoon. This is an action platformer shooter for PC that comes with an EGA graphics flavor. This is a small but fun action game that has your character Dangerous Fen entering evil Vasya's mansion to vanquish the evil creatures. Armed with a trusty shotgun that you must reload manually after all ammo has been spent, you can jump around the mansion, shoot enemies, and collect treasures. This is a one-man project made in a week, and for what it is, it's pretty fun. The graphics are well drawn and the sound effects are fine. The controls are simple, but the assigned keys are not very convenient as far as the fire and reload buttons are concerned. The special treat of the game is the gruesome death animations every time you lose. The graphics get an 8.5. The controls, an 8. The music and sound effects, a 7.5. And the gameplay, an 8.8, for a total of 8.2. This is a free and fun little game that will keep you entertained for a while and a solid one-man effort. Our next Vault game is the review of a remaster of a classic RPG game that came out all the way back to 1993 for the Amiga. This is Ambermoon Advanced for PC by Pirdakor, or Pirdakor, based on the original Ambermoon by Thalion. Launching the game gives you the option to play either the original game on your PC or the advanced version that we definitely recommend. It includes, besides the chance to enjoy this classic gem natively on your PC without the use of emulators, an abundance of quality-of-life enhancements that make the game easier to play and prettier to look at. The story of the game is a continuation of the previous Amber games, and there's just not enough time to tell here. Suffice to say, it involves a prophecy, an old evil returning, and a young man tasked by his grandfather with a great quest. Enough said. The graphics of the game have been enhanced greatly, but without ruining the original's feeling. The 3D movement section especially has seen great improvements with clearer and higher resolution graphics and a very fluid movement. The controls also now utilize the keyboard along with the mouse, making moving around the game's world, both in 2D and 3D, a breeze. The classic music themes are here, with the quality upgraded, as is for the sound effects. The gameplay has been enhanced as well, and received a series of improvements that lie under the hood. There are too many to mention here, but the game comes with a very comprehensive manual in PDF form that you can study, and even a sort of tutorial that can inform you of the changes. The battle system remains pretty much the same, and even then there are various changes for the better that you can find. The game will be followed by 4 more episodes with all the expansions that the game received. Keep in mind that this is a one-man's job, and by looking at it through that prism, this is simply spectacular. The graphics are awarded a 9.2. The controls a 9.5. The music and sound effects a 9.3. And the gameplay a 9.5. For a total of 9.4 and the title of the Game of the Week. If you haven't enjoyed the world of Ambermoon before, now is the best time to do so through this amazing remaster. Our retrospect review this week remembers Sierra Online's The Incredible Machine, an original and addictive puzzle game from 1993. This game was nothing if not original back in the day. Your job as an aspiring inventor is to find some way, using the available things in each puzzle, to create some sort of contraption that will achieve a specific goal. The goals vary from catapulting a bowling ball across the screen, to popping a balloon, punching and breaking a fistball, and all sorts of crazy stuff. That's not to say that the objects provided to solve the puzzles are your typical machinery equipment. These are also various from hamster-energized wheels, auto-punching gloves, scissors, you name it. You can control the direction the objects are placed in, the position, and in some of them, even the direction their wheels or gears are turning. The puzzles vary from smart and hilarious to downright insane, and that only adds to the fun. The game also provides, besides the 80 puzzles, a free-form game to create and activate your own crazy contraptions just for the fun of it. The graphics are presented with a Super VGA cartoonist style and are wonderful even by today's standards. The music and sound effects are very good and have a loony mood in them, perfectly fitted to the rest of the game's atmosphere. The controls are extremely easy to master, and there is nothing here to make your life tough. The graphics are awarded a solid 9.5. The controls a 9.3. The music and sound effects a 9.3. The gameplay a 9.5, for a total of 9.4. We tell you, if this wasn't a retrospect, this would have been our Game of the Week. Definitely revisit it. Not long ago, we reviewed the amazing and scary adventure game Snarl. In that, we referred to the fact that it was actually a prequel to two games, the upcoming Obsession and the Teeth of Glass. Today, we are reviewing the equally amazing and equally creepy Teeth of Glass by Beyond Bullions. You play as Dr. Joshua Hagstrom, and you're trapped in an alternate reality after operating on an unlikely patient. You must find a way to escape with your life and find some answers on the way, if possible. The game is a classic point-and-click adventure game as far as the user interface goes, because there's nothing classic about the story. Make no mistake, this is a truly horrifying story that lies behind this game, and it shows from the first minutes in. The atmosphere is top-notch, as are the graphics, with big and wonderfully animated characters and scary, detailed environments. The music is eerie, and the user interface is simple. If we could complain about something, it would be that the game is fairly short and we just wanted more of this wonderful nightmare to play with. As we wait impatiently for the third game, Obsession, to come out in a full version, we will mention the rankings. The graphics receive a 9.4. The puzzles, a 9. The music, sound effects, a 9.4. And the gameplay, a 9.6, for a total of 9.35. A nightmare to enjoy. In our retrospective adventure game review this week, we remember the hilarious Simon The Sorcerer by Adventuresoft. The game came out late in the adventure game's life cycle, and as such, it did not achieve the financial success that it deserved, but it did get some great reviews, and it was even followed by a sequel a couple of years later. The game sets you as Simon, a 12-year-old teen that, because of a mysterious book, gets transferred to a parallel world of magic and monsters and becomes the target of the evil sorcerer's sordid whilst attempting to return home. The story is rather an excuse to create a goofy, satirical and hilarious world with hundreds of references to famous movies, books, and even other games. It implements some of the finest British humor you can find in a game. The user interface is an evolution of the Scum interface that LucasArts introduced a few years back, and it is a joy to play with. The graphics are vivid, with amazing detailed and rather funny animations all around. The music and sound effects complement the comedic atmosphere perfectly. There was even an enhanced CD-ROM version a little later with full speech, although the option to have both speech and text was not available. The puzzle solutions sometimes are borderline irrational, but it is not so often or so intense as to ruin the game. The rankings are as follows: graphics 9.2, puzzles 8.8, music and sound effects 9.4, gameplay 9.1, for a total of 9.1. Simon the Sorcerer is a hilarious and goofy adventure game that you must revisit if you're looking for a good game and a good laugh.
That short man with the strange eyes gave it to us, remember?
We didn't have to pay for it.
you ever felt that even though you do everything right, the odds are always against you? That must have been the feeling for Coleco at the time of the market crash back in 1983, after so many years of perfecting the absolute Atari VCS killer, only to see it all going up in a cloud of nothingness. This is the story of the Colecovision, the Atari killer console. The story begins back in 1976 with the Coleco Company, a company that, as the name suggests, started dealing in leathers, enjoying some success with the Telstar system, another one of the famous Pong devices that popped up everywhere after Atari's original Pong success. Coleco, an abbreviation of the words Connecticut Leather Company, was founded way back in 1932 as a leather and shoes dealer. The company, after facing financial troubles, diversified and eventually ended up in the toys business, making a name for itself as a quality company. But the arrival of the new medium of video games consoles was a great opportunity for the company to expand to a new market. Thus, the attempts to gain entrance with the likes of Coleco Telstar. But the Pong clones were everywhere, and Eric Bromley, a newly hired designer and engineer fresh off the arcade coin-op market, along with Arnold Greenberg, CEO of Coleco, had set their sights on something bigger. When Atari hit the market with the Atari 2600 VCS system, it was a revelation for many in the entertainment industry. This was a new way for people to entertain themselves at home, and according to the aforementioned duo, Atari was not doing it too well. Sure enough, Arnold authorized Eric to create preliminary designs of a console that was far more capable and more advanced than the primitive creation of Atari. Eric did not lose any time, but one must realize that at the time, Coleco was not a company as big or as rich as Atari. In fact, the company was kind of struggling, and so the board of directors implemented a new strategy that every single product coming out of the Coleco factory must be the epitome of price-profit margin. And on that wall, all the hopes and dreams of Eric and Arnold fell and crushed. At the time, prices of the RAM chips were still sky high, and the system pre-designed by Eric was really demanding as far as RAM goes, catapulting manufacturing costs for Coleco, and the board did not want to hear it. The plans for an adversary to the Atari 2600 were shelved, but not abandoned by the duo. Precious time was lost, and this, in the long run, would prove fatal, but for now, it was still a dream to achieve. And it was achieved in early 1981. The better implementation of the microchip techniques and the high demand of the market since the arrival of the home micros plummeted the RAM prices to an all-time low, and Eric did not lose time to dig up his plans for a console. The duo brought the plans back to the board, and with a new cost-profit margin, they got the OK. Thus, the Colecovision was born. The system was truly a very advanced console for the time, and way ahead of Atari's VCS or the new competitor on the market since '79, the Intellivision by Mattel. Colecovision had a Z80A processor at 3.58 MHz that was way faster than the MOS 6507 CPU of Atari VCS that ran at 1.19 MHz, and even faster than the 16-bit CPU of the Intellivision, running close to 2 MHz. The Z80A also was the most popular processor at the time, found in almost every home microcomputer on the market, opening the possibility of game ports. The system came with a TMS9928 graphics processor as well, that included hardware sprite support, 3 graphics modes with a maximum of 256 to 192 resolution, and a 16-color display at the same time on screen. All this was complemented by the Texas Instruments SN76489 sound chipset that was found also in other popular systems, like the TI/99/4A, horrible name again, the BBC Micro and the Tandy 1000 to name a few, offering true music and sound effects and not the painful cacophony of the Atari 2600. The system was equipped with 16K of video RAM and an 8K ROM, with the game cartridges getting as big as 32 kilobytes. These technical specifications for any system back in 1981 were considered high-end, and it was leaps and bounds ahead of the competition. The system came with 2 controllers that, even though they resembled the later Atari 5200 controllers, the feeling and usefulness had nothing to do with that mess. The machine was ready to market, but just as things are today, you can't successfully launch a console unless you have a flagship game to launch it with or pack in with. But some of the most famous video game hits licenses of those days were already taken by Atari. Games like Space Invaders or Pac-Man. Coleco needed something of equal strength or even mightier. Something so successful in the arcades that would surpass even these two. Enter Donkey Kong. Back in late 1981, Nintendo was still focusing on the arcade business. The NES was not even conceived yet, as Yamauchi was trying to establish the Nintendo name on his home country and make it international through the arcade business first. Their latest and greatest hit so far was Donkey Kong, and it was all over the Japanese arcades. The chaotic conditions in Atari at the time, with the company now under the rulership of Warner Bros., could have been the reason that Atari had not moved in to acquire that license yet too. Eric had to move fast, as the board of directors were having second thoughts again about the whole project, and nearly pulled the plug to the entire Colecovision operation. To be precise, Eric went to Nintendo as they were the up-and-coming firm on the arcade business, not knowing about Donkey Kong's existence yet, as it did not launch until later in the year. After a trip to Kyoto and a meeting with the intimidating Hiroshi Yamauchi himself, and after a few hours of exhausting and intimidating tactics by Yamauchi, Eric, during a tour of the Nintendo HQ, fell upon a finished Donkey Kong arcade machine. And he was impressed immediately and convinced that this was the flagship title he needed to launch Colecovision to the top. He had to get the license, and fast. After another set of exhausting negotiations, Eric left Kyoto with the rights to Donkey Kong on a napkin. You see, back in the day, the legal procedures of the West were not accustomed to Japan, and the verbal and informal deals were the option of the day. Not only that, but the deal was closed at the highest price Coleco ever paid for any license before or after, and that couldn't have been achieved without the help of Arnold. After some more scary events, including a scare by Yamauchi that he had sold the rights to Atari instead, his refusal to sign formal legal papers as it was required in the US to actually seal the deal, and a great amount of help from Yoko Yamauchi, Hiroshi Yamauchi's daughter, this whole thriller came to an end, with Coleco finally acquiring the exclusive rights, for the time being, of Donkey Kong, and right on time as the arcade hit the US source and became a huge success. In August 1982, Colecovision was finally launched and became an instant hit all over America. That Christmas, Colecovision seemed to be selling so fast that they would soon run out of stock. The console was accompanied by a powerful and aggressive campaign that really hit Atari where it hurt. The technical superiority. It was true that for the first time, kids and adults alike could play at home the full version of arcade games that also resembled those at the arcades. Coleco kept on hitting Atari relentlessly when they introduced the Atari VCS module for ColecoVision. That was effectively a peripheral that allowed ColecoVision to play with full compatibility the Atari 2600 games, dipping in that way into the huge Atari VCS library of games. To make matters worse for Atari, the newly introduced 2600 successor, the Atari 5200, was not only performing badly on the market, but one of the reasons for that was that it was not backwards compatible with the Atari 2600. Of course, Atari sued Coleco for copyright infringement, but as the module was created with off-the-shelf materials and did not copy any Atari patented hardware, the lawsuit was lost. By early 1983, ColecoVision surpassed the golden 1 million unit sale, and Coleco seemed unstoppable at attaining the crown. To expand even further into the new digital markets, Coleco introduced the Adam system, effectively an expansion of the ColecoVision with a keyboard and a proprietary tape recorder, turning ColecoVision into a fully functional microcomputer system. The Adam unit soon came out also as an autonomous home micro. But there were dark times ahead. The Adam system proved a costly mistake for the company, as the system was plagued with serious problems such as defects and even bugs and faults that rendered the whole unit useless. The computer market was on the rise at the time, and with such problems, Adam was soon crushed and beaten by the competition. The worst, of course, was the infamous video game crash of 1983. Caused mainly by Atari's indifference for the quality of the software that overflowed the market for the VCS 2600, the oversaturation led to a sudden halt in sales and eventual collapse of the video games industry in the US. Coleco tried to remain afloat for a while, selling out consoles at a huge discount and pouring money into the company from the toys division, especially the recent success of the company in the face of the Cabbage Patch Kids. But the aftershock of the market collapse was so strong in the US that Coleco eventually collapsed, and it took its amazing machine with it. Nintendo, safe from the storm back in Japan, survived and was waiting for the waves to calm down, preparing an invasion of the US that would change the market forever. The computer rivals of Adam were just beginning their rise to the top, having Europe as their main battlefield away from the ashes of Atari's nuclear catastrophe. For many, ColecoVision was an unsung hero, the first console that actually brought the arcade experience home, especially at a time when companies like Atari promised the sky and delivered a blocky cloud. For others, Colecovision remains an obscure console of the end of the second generation era that just never truly made it to the top. One thing's for sure, Colecovision was an amazing machine, and if you have access to one, we're sure you'll agree with us.